Welcome back, movie lovers. I'm Josh.
I'm Chris.
And with our powers combined, we are Garner Brothers movie lovers. Today we're talking Shazam. Black Adam. It's the next film in the DCEU. It's about a really cool skateboarding kid. And he's so cool, and there's all these bad guys with guns around this Middle Eastern town. They're running everything. And this cool kid from the 90s is skateboarding around, and he's just causing havoc. He's not scared of anyone with guns. And he talks back to everyone, and he does tricks on his skateboard. And he needs a superhero to save his city. So his mom gets a superhero from the cave.
That's the best synopsis anyone's ever made for a movie. There's nothing wrong with the way that the young man who played this character played the character. It's just the way he's written is kind of silly.
So, that's Shazam. Dang it! That's Black Adam.
He's the third Superman in the DCEU now.
Except that in Shazam there was like 12
other Shazam
Shazams.
kids.
It stars
Dwayne Johnson and Pierce Brosnan and some other people. It's directed by Collet-Serra, who also did The Jungle Book. And he's done like 4 of Liam Neeson's action movies that came out in February. And The Shallows. Making this the third movie of his that we have reviewed on our channel. And probably the first one where I actually pronounced his name correctly. I don't know how to say this director's name. The film is directed by a guy whose name we do not know how to say. Jaume Collet-Serra. Could be possibly one mispronunciation of that name.
Who did the music?
The music is by Lorne Balfe. He's one of Hans Zimmer's lackeys. He's probably Hans Zimmer's like #1 guy.
That makes sense. Lackeys. Like Hans Zimmer is the villain of soundtrack score writers.
He
He's
kind
just
of
sitting
is.
in his throne of musical power.
And he has a bunch of minions who write things for him. And it's overbearing. That was the word you used on the way home.
Yeah.
And it is. It is so much.
And you
muchness.
compared it to the soundtrack of Man of Steel, which is right.
Yeah.
And,
it's not just that it sounds the same. It's that the score was used the same way.
Yeah.
It was like, how can we make a Zack Snyder movie without Zack Snyder? I know. Let's put tons of slow-mo into it and give it a score that scores every scene like it's the most important scene in cinematic history. Then you have the score. Yeah, it worked for me. The opening sequence of Black Adam,
He is so scary, and the music fits that tone really well. But then they just use that same tone for every moment following in the movie. He at one point just leaves a building and floats to a big statue. And it's the same music that they had during this horrifying battle where Black Adam is just ripping people to pieces. It's just him floating to a big statue. But the music is going... And it doesn't fit. They also do that as the camera's flying over Professor X's school for gifted youngsters. Which is definitely in this movie. Complete with the ground opening up and a super jet flying out. It's just so over the top. The music is just so much. Yeah. The fight scenes are so much. Maybe it wouldn't feel that way if we hadn't been in the third row of the theater looking like straight up at like an IMAX screen because it was huge and all the action, it was so zoomed in on the action all the time that it just felt like you were, I don't know, being fired out of a cannon for 2 hours. It was pretty intense. That is awesome. Yeah. That's about right. Sitting on the third row watching Black Adam is about like being shot out of a cannon for 2 hours. But at the end you'll be like, Well,
that was better.
That
than
was
I
a lot
thought
better
it
than
would
I
be.
thought it would be.
When I imagined being fired out of a cannon for 2 hours, I thought it was going to suck.
That's pretty good.
That was much better.
I think I'd like to get shot out of a cannon like that more often from the DCEU.
But what was great? Because both of us agreed this movie was better than we were expecting.
Yeah.
What did you like about it?
I think a big problem with a lot of DCEU movies is that their fight sequences are all the same thing. They're all just punching, and there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on during the fights. I actually fell asleep during the scene in Batman vs. Superman when Batman fights parademons in the desert. I fell asleep while Batman was fighting parademons in the desert. Did you hear what I said? That's bad. These were really fun fight scenes. They were able to showcase each superhero's powers in interesting ways that were fun and entertaining, rather than just punching, which is what most DCEU fight scenes are. What did you enjoy?
It was funnier than your average DCEU movie. They've tried to inject some humor into those ever since Zack Snyder left, with varying success. This one did make me laugh probably 5 or 6 times really hard.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
There were some good lines. It didn't take itself so seriously, which was actually my biggest worry going into the film. Looking at some of the trailers, I thought, Dwayne Johnson's just going to be so serious in this movie. And I really like it when he's kind of fun and funny. But it looked like he was going to be so serious that this movie wasn't going to be any fun. But they leaned right into that seriousness just hard enough to make it funny frequently. And so that was good. I was glad for a little bit of a lighter tone while people were being murdered. Which happens a lot in this movie. He kills
murders
everybody.
people so brutally. The first 2/3 of this movie, I think, are really, really strong. And the final act kind of petered off a little bit. So just temper your expectations there.
Did feel tacked on. I mean, all of us kind of thought the movie should maybe have ended after the second act and saved the third act for the sequel. But it feels like you kind of watched both the first movies in the Black Adam franchise in one sitting. Here's something else I like about the film. There's some fun interpersonal dynamics between some of the characters. So the film involves a group of superheroes called the Justice Society, because if you're a group of superheroes in the DCEU, you are contractually obligated to have the word justice in your title. The Justice Society comes in with 4 superheroes, and 2 of them have been together for a long time and have a little bit of like a buddy cop kind of relationship, which is kind of fun. And the other 2 are like brand new. This is like their first assignment. So the dynamics between all those characters was usually pretty watchable, I thought. And when they started interacting with Dwayne Johnson's character, that was kind of fun too. This movie did suffer sometimes from the same problems that some of Zack Snyder's films do, in that it feels like they're trying to be the coolest movie ever made when it's not that cool. This movie was at its best when it was a little tongue-in-cheek. Marvel movies have been so bad lately.
This was better than most of the stuff we've been getting from the Marvel movies.
What was the last Marvel movie that was better than this? Was probably Spider-Man 3.
And Shang-Chi.
This was not great, but better than Marvel's been giving us lately, so...
Is it time to rate it then?
Probably.
So it wasn't great, but what was it? It's time for Good, Fine, Bad.
Good! Fine. Good. Bad. Ugh.
Fine.
Really good. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
I'm going to give this movie a fine. I thought that there were some good things about it. There were some bad things about it. Kind of middle of the road for me.
Okay. I'm going to give this movie a good. I think I was expecting it to be much worse than it is. And so go see this movie in theaters, if you ask me. And if you ask Chris,
you can if you want. And there was a genuinely enthusiastic cheer from the crowd during the mid-credits scene. Yeah. So make sure you don't miss that if you go see it, because lots of people were excited about that.
Since we're releasing this video probably the day that this movie comes out or close to it. We're going to release a spoiler-free section. A couple days after, hopefully we'll have the spoiler section for your indulgence. So, if you enjoyed this, go see the movie and check back with us in a few days for the spoiler version of this very movie. Give this video a like, share it with the whole wide world, and all of your wildest dreams will come true. Tom Holland will always be a little boy. Oh, Mr. Stark.
Wow. That's the best Tom Holland impression ever.